Hello everyone and welcome to Fuse Room. I'm Alberto. This video is about MAAT metering tools. They're a set of core elements that you can use if you're making music in digital audio, which is probably a lot of the time. If you're producing music, recording, mixing, mastering, these tools are invaluable because they lock onto our ears and eyes, two senses at once, to show us what is going on. Sometimes we get tired, sometimes we, shift around different monitoring systems or different rooms, or, as in my case, we have a team of people we work with. I've been working with soundtracks for gaming for the last couple of years, a lot more than I used to do, and there's a lot of files coming and going. Sometimes it's really easy to forget about something that shouldn't happen in audio design or sound effects or anything that might happen in a video game because of headphones or subwoofers or, systems that everybody might use. So these are really important. These have established their role as my main elements. I've been using them for a couple of years, and let's go. I'm gonna show you how I use them, what they do. Take your time, relax. This is gonna be super cool. So the first plugin I want to talk about is the Dynamic Range Meter Mark II. This is how I came to know MAAT, because this plugin used to be made by somebody else and then they inherited this plugin, and that's how I read about them and found out about the other plugins. Now, it's a meter I've been using for a lot of time and I'm hooked to the visuals, I'm really used to them. It tells you everything you need to know. There's true peak, there's dynamic range, also in terms of PSR or LRA, if you're into that stuff. There's RMS, also LUFS momentary or short for loudness. You can even unlink the central part, which is the dynamic range. So you have left to right, dynamic ranges. And you can obviously reset these and you have gate with auto blanking, which means that this is perfectly 100% compliant with R128 or 1770, whatever you're using, if you're into post and needs to abide by standards. You can move your reference target loudness and your reference peak maximum, And you can also monitor with a left click what it would be if this music of yours, this session, was an AAC file played from Apple Music. So this is incredibly, useful to just see what will happen to your, final 0.1% once you are there. If you right-click AAC, the meter will also encode your song in real time to the standards of Apple Music. It will take it some time, but it's just a latency thing, it works. And in real time, you'll be able to also hear, not only read, what the meter is telling you. And this will be 100% compliant to what is happening in Apple Music, iTunes and that stuff, for what matters in terms of sound as well. So once again, you link your ears to your eyes, and that's super important because yes, it's not lossless. So, music will change a little bit, and this gives you an instant preview without encoding, listening, testing, and it's much faster and convenient. If you get to the preferences, you can save your presets, change the scale, go from relative to absolute if you're a relative person, so you want to know how under or over you are from your reference target loudness. For example, I have -14 here. You have a relative scale range that you can change. You have true peaks and colors that you can, for loudness modes, you can set your levels in terms of the yellow. That's what I call it. Like when these will become yellow visually and then red, you can make it smaller or larger. You can also disable the gate. If you have sort of a legacy R128 behavior, you can enhance the experience with your tooltips and you can make these horizontal or vertical. So when you close this, it becomes completely different, but still the same if you prefer it, in vertical. It is really, really good. And this is something I got hooked up on because colleagues were using them. It's also important, again, to have a coherent metering system. This, I would say, is the first plugin that I would recommend, or, that I've been using for the past years, because it's just great and has everything you need. No need to change something that works, right? The second plugin I want to show you is called Gon, and it's a Goniometer. So this is much simpler, and it's on the lower right of the screen. This plugin just shows you a goniometer, which you can change in gain, focus, you can make auto gain, you can have it as points, some people like it better, and you can change the phosphor colors on how it goes to red, and the persistence, because some people like a little bit less persistence, like I do, some people like more persistence. So this is a sort of a memory effect that the thing has. I like 0.25, so I'm gonna leave it there. You can save these as a default state. And this plugin is convenient because it quickly shows you something I think our ears don't always perceive in the heat of the moment, and that is the spread of the stereo field and the dangers of out-of-phase signals. So, once you have a lot of out-of-phase, it turns red and it goes sideways. It's a classic tool, and it's just there and it's fantastic. So this is something that I would definitely recommend you get and have there because it's a goniometer. So it always makes it better if you change position or you're monitoring, triangle, or you're on the couch or there's people around. Sometimes you just lose references, and that is one of the best and easiest, most sought after tools for sure. Speaking about something that is actually a little bit more advanced but invaluable once you have it, I guarantee you this will change the way you perceive your mixes, especially if you're a mastering person, but also a mixing person as well. It's the 2BC multi-correlation, or multi-core as I call it, which has a sort of a science fiction vibe to it, so I love it. This tells you the actual phase coherence of your different bands. So it's different from the goniometer because what it says is actually per band, per range, it's got a lot of them. I haven't even counted them. And it tells you if you're at 0 degrees, so mono, if you are completely complementary in phase, or if you're completely flipped phase, so 180 degrees. And this is great because you have control, or you have actually a visual reference of where your phase is at in terms of frequency ranges. So you have a general correlation on the top, and you have a general balance at the bottom. You also have some monitoring controls. You can flip left and right, you can solo left and right, and you can hear mono or difference. I usually don't use these controls because what I do is I use 2-bus control, which is another plugin, and I place that at the end of my mix bus so I can do the same stuff. I have a quick balance and correlation. I have left and right solo, mono and difference, and flip. So this comes in 2 versions. If you want a mini version, that is like a mini-me version of that, has the same controls, it just occupies less real estate. And so I don't use the controls on multi-core, but you have them, if you want to just use one tool and save space, that's definitely doable. I like both. I like how the little line goes. It's really easy to understand where things are, but the multi-frequency spectrum, the sort of like, again, the multi-correlation meter, the fact that all those lines represent areas of your entire frequency spectrum is really good. Sometimes you spot an area in which you have extreme subwoofer range that is completely out of phase or is dangerously approaching being out of phase. And you don't hear that because look at that number, it's 20 hertz. So sometimes you just don't hear it. You don't have the monitors, you don't have the speakers. In the gaming industry, especially when a lot of people are using speakers with subwoofers or headphones that have virtual, surround systems, this thing saved my life. Career probably more than life, but I'm thinking it could get physical, so I will say my entire life. These 3 plugins are the core elements of the metering that I've been using for a lot of time. So the dynamic range meter, very old, even before MAAT, took it under their wing. The goniometer, which is super cool, and the multi-core. These are really, really recommended. 2-bus control is also great. Why not having that, right? You can actually solo channels, but what I like the most, except for the mono difference, left, right, which I could do here in my monitoring in hardware as well, what I really like is those lines. The L to R and the -2 +1, these are really, really good. And it takes you 3 seconds to see things shifting even when you're controlling single tracks. So this sort of concludes what I think is the first core elements of that. Now we should put these into use, and I'm gonna introduce to you 3 more tools. I would say one last super geeky and advanced, which we'll talk at the very end, and then the actual 2 core tools that I really like for processing. Now, you should really take a look at this stuff, and I've been using it a lot as my sort of a clean equalizer. So sort of a not known secret that I'm kind of revealing, the Santa Cruz, which is also a great town, Equalizer is one of the simplest yet coolest tools that they've made. It's just an EQ. And why would we need that? Well, first off, the interface to me is really easy to use and great. Then I have a lot of sessions going back and forth with colleagues that I have, and those people in the gaming industry that I work with, they have a lot of MAAT love. So they have the SantaCruzEQ spread over everywhere. The second tool that I want to preview is something I am very passionate about, because this is a real unit in analog made by my super cool friend and mentor, Roger Schult. Roger is a genius in this world. He's one of the best people for anything in audio. For fixing it, he fixed a lot of stuff of mine when I made it explode, and for improving it, and just for knowledge. You know, I've spent time with him, and he's just an encyclopedia of knowledge and stuff. So he makes gear, and a piece of gear he makes is the PhaseShifter, RS meaning Roger Schult. So what this does is it can take a stereo signal and start messing with the phase, either at 0, 180, or variable. So here, if you go variable, you can choose from 15 to 1 sort of 80. And some people ask, like, why don't you have less than 15? Well, you don't have less than 15 because in hardware form, Roger could not get it to be precise and stable at less than 15 degrees. So the plugin actually emulates that as well. You also pick the tilting or flipping point. That is the crossover at which the phase crossing will happen. So you can do these for just one channel. When you instantiate this, you only work on the right and the left stays the same. You can flip it, so you can work on the left and not on the right. You can hear the delta, which I'll show you, is just the difference between what is there on the left and what you're working against. So it's really the delta, that's the easiest to say. And then you can mirror it so that both left and right are getting the same treatment. Because once you do this and you're in a mixed situation, you might want to flip phase on the entire spectrum of your single track to make it react better with another one. For example, bass against drum tracks, which we're going to do. So this is pretty much everything there is to know. There is only one more knob, which is dBs, because sometimes it's good to have some gain up or down, because you want to sort of like compensate the perceived loudness difference in terms of what you did with the phase, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to listen to this session that Drew sent me. We're not going to comment on it. We're just going to enjoy it. And then we're going to sort of like, I wouldn't say pre-mix it, but sort of like, I hope improve it with the tools that we've been just talking about. I'll start from the start. How about that?
broken heart doesn't need another crack. We go forward this time, there's no going back. No more of what was, only what will be. This time there's only sureties. Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart doesn't need another crack. We go forward this time, there's no going back. Our kiss marks the spot, so sublime. Finally we can say there's no going back now. No going back now. No, there's no going back. No, there's no going back. Going back now. No going back now.
all right, awesome song. I mean, he's pre-producing this, and how cool is that it sounds this way? And I mean, they're into pre-production stuff. I can hear where things can go from here. I'm just super excited for them. No, it's not even my song. So let's keep, at it, and let's work on some of the stuff. I think the drums need some love because they're kind of a little bit sort of shy. So what I want to do is add a limiter here so that we have just a regular -1 setting with a -1 threshold. I'll use the standard here in Studio One just because. The release I'm gonna set to 40. I have no idea. The attack probably the fast. And we shouldn't touch a lot of that. I want it to true peak. We're gonna leave it. We don't need it. But I'm gonna place it first because I want to actually also see the behavior of the limiter in my meters. So the meters have to come after that. We're trooping it at -1.3, so we didn't touch it. But once I'm, heading to more of this tinkering, we're probably gonna end up touching the limiter just a tad. But our threshold for like the target loudness is -14 LUFS and the -1 peak, right? So that we're compliant with Spotify, Apple Music, and all that stuff. So here I had done some stuff, but I want to redo it, whatever. So we can just erase, all the tracks here, just mute them. We have 6 bands. There's only 6 bands. You can't have 13, you can't have 2. I mean, you can load 2, but there's a maximum of 6, which includes 2 filters, high pass and low pass, and 4 bands. Now, the real jewel of SantaCruzEQ, which is gonna blow your mind, is the architecture. You have 12 architectures, which are super well explained when you hover over the question mark. These go to cover all of the classic and non-classic equalizers that you can have in your life, either analog or digital, especially analog. So we go from a classic symmetrical, I'm gonna show you what it means. It means that the Q remains constant when I'm going up and down, to a classic asymmetrical, so that when I'm going down, the Q, as you can see, has a different effect on me going up. So cuts are sharper somehow than the broader boosts. Then we have a proportional, so that the Q actually changes, even if the number stays the same, but you see that the behavior of the bell changes when I'm going up or down with gain. So the higher the gain, the different the Q, sort of like the sharpness of the intervention, right? Proportional 1, 2, 3 are great sometimes for vocals. Some of them are more extreme. I think they go from 1 to 3 being the most extreme. We have constant Q asymmetrical, so that this is constant Q, but you see how the behavior changes. Now, if I were to not know what exactly that means, this is API, but by the way, think sort of. And it says series asymmetrical constant Q boosts like number 1, but it cuts extra wide like number 5. Good for gentle overall cut corrections with dips up to -3 dBs. I'm thinking this is sort of a 550A thing or 560 because the sound I've tried it has that kind of vibe. Again, we don't get the harmonics, all the mojo, preamp emulation. This is just curves, but they're very well done. We head over to all of these. There's, I don't know, number 10. What is number 10? Let's go there to have fun. So this says there's no analog relative for number 10. It's a constant Q ideal. It's in series, ideal, constant Q, similar to number 1. Let me move it. Doesn't really change, but it's probably getting a different sound in curves. One of the super cool are the parallel 11 and 12. Look at what 11 says. It says Massenburg Sontec GML 9500. This is a parallel feed-forward feedback complementary amplitude and phase characteristics for boosts and cuts. I don't know how many of you are still there, or you pretended you were going to the bathroom, but you actually left music school, right? So this is great. This is GML, people. This is one of the patents that really made equalization the way we know it, and it's a fancy term to say all the way, EQ. Number 12 is parallel LC asymmetric. Do you want to wonder who this is? It's purple. It's made in California as well. This is the massive passive, because this is parallel passive LC, reactive tonal advantages via band interaction. So because this emulates passive parallel behavior, these bands are taking away a little bit from each other in the way they build themselves. And it's a parallel passive. That's the best way to describe it. So This could be a mix bus thing, right, with the GML. And the others, for example, the classical asymmetric or proportional could be your Neves, could be your SSLs, could be your APIs, right? But in one interface, one plugin to rule them all. This is really, really good. The filters are also great. The low pass you can't change. Actually, no, you can. There's two of them. There's a more like a steeper one and there's a less steeper one, which also changes because the Q factor is modifiable. The number one does the same. So LC1 or LC2 change in approaching these. So it depends where you're mixing, whether you're tracking that. That is all there is to know to the SantaCruzEQ that I know of, unless you want to go to the preferences in which you can make it change color, which is kind of cool because I like cyan, for example. And then there's hotkeys explanation, and I'll show you. I have limited knowledge, but I know my way around here. CPU saving mode, band solo lock if you want it, and there's, you know, saving global states and stuff in case you want to change that. There's also keyboard gain, which you can select using keyboard, you know, as reference tones. When you click it, it makes a sound. Let me show you if I enable this. So it's kind of cool because it's a piano note that tells you right there what the note would be in reference to the song. So you can make those comparisons. You can hide that keyboard. You can sort of focus on one area. You can oversample these. I lied, there was more about this. And there's also input and output auto gain monitoring for also the calculation of what it was before, what it is now, and compensating to get the gain matched. Because that's super important in a lot of applications because you don't want to fool yourself around. So you can do it by hand, obviously, but you can also introduce a change that is done automatically. These numbers are previous and next in case you want to change your EQ type. And don't forget, you have these question mark, which explains the architecture. So you have green, orange, and red lights. You can bypass these dot, sort of looks like an eye, and the amazing undo and redo along with the presets. Right? Because sometimes you just wish you could undo one move you've done because you feel like it was the perfect EQ moves and you just screw it up. You can do it there. So now we have everything. I want to hear to these drums, listen to these drums and just make it better. So it's not bad by itself, like it's got the mids, but it doesn't feel that way when the other tracks are in there. So I'm gonna do it in solo just because I wouldn't probably, but let's just do it. So this snare really needs some love here. And I wanna add some kick as well, and I'm gonna add it with 2. It doesn't really matter the numbers you use, but you can sort them and they will sort of remap themselves. You can also zoom in and out. You know, I like kind of 12 for tracking and mixing because I'm making wider moves. So let's keep going. Right? I mean, there's a lot of room. Now, 2 things I really love about all MAAT EQs. Trust me, they all behave this way, and it's amazing that they do because there's a coherence, you know, muscle memory that you can use. When you right-click on a band, it goes in solo. And when you control move this band, you're forbidden from changing the frequency area. So you can't move the X-axis, you can only change gain. This is insanely good because a lot of times you lock onto a frequency, you don't want to change it, you just want to change gain. You don't want to move your mouse to the bottom of the, you know, the interface. You just want to go and just drag it down, but you want to snap that frequency. So control will do that for you. There probably are other shortcuts, but these 2, the right click and the control click, are amazing. Let's try this. All right, now I need a little bit more here. And now, before and after. So it's a little bit maybe boomy in the kick. We could change this, but I could move it to LS2, for example, and get rid of that 100 something. Wow, that worked really well. I wasn't expecting that. Perfect. We're not gonna touch this. Now I wanna hear the bass, because that's the foundation of my mix. I wanna save also, very important. So how would it be without the actual, EQ we did, bass and drums? Okay, I like this. What I want to do is I want to fix this by moving the phase of this stuff. And I want to do it by moving it to 0, 180. And I want to try and mirror this because it's a mono track, even if it looks like it's a stereo thing. And I want to find the spot at around 100 Hertz where moving these phase will improve the sound of my kick and bass interaction. Let's try this. If I do it like this, I really hear the extreme lows hitting me much more from the kick. It feels like they're not competing anymore and they're more interactive somehow. So that's done. I don't need to change anything. It's just 100, 45 degrees on the phase shifting, and that works. But I moved it from 100 to 160 just because. Now we move to the other stuff, like guitar stem I see here, but I would actually do vocals because they're super important. So let's do this. Let me go to the first chorus or something like that, and let's address the vocals. Now here I had done something. Let's try it before and after, because I kind of liked this while I was doing some tests.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
What I heard was there's a little bit of a 90s shrill, which I like, but I wanted to sort of redefine. So look what I've done. I've sort of like shifted 271 against 649, and then I've dipped 6K with a boost, a wider boost at 6, again, it's almost over that. And this creates a sort of an effect that there's not real fix there. Let's try this, before and after.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like.
I totally can see him here now. I can't really explain. The only words I want to leave you with is I can see him here rather than before. I see him better. Like there's less masking within the same track. So I'm gonna leave it at that. We don't know if we want to do it better or not. I want to treat the backings though as well. Let me do this and let's check what I was doing. I don't know.
Each candle we've blown, every star.
These we go perfectly complementary. Let's try.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun.
Now we can't do it with compressors because we're not using compressors, it's just with that. But we are actually soft compressing this thing a little bit. Let me try another band here, maybe in the lows. I like to avoid where the vocals have consonants because the leads need to lead, right? So let's keep trying.
Each candle we've blown, every star.
Man, those 100s, 112. Awesome. Let's try without these and with.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
Man, that's awesome. Now, if we wanted, we could actually do this. Let me take a look at how much off phase I am in the extreme subs. I'm gonna solo the BGVs, and now my meters are telling me what happens in just that track.
Each candle we've blown every star.
Okay. We could avoid, further risks, maybe go a little bit far. Let's hear how much I can carve without getting any problem.
Each candle we've blown every star. We've wished upon our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke in the mirrors are all cleared like crime.
Have you noticed how much you need to cut to get a sort of a mono part? I don't really think we need to do that, but just to check it, I mean, we're not completely out of phase or just hindering stuff, but the meters respond, so they give an additional feedback to that. I'm actually not gonna touch it because that perfect 112 bell was just such a genius move. I don't wanna touch it. Now, let's try guitars. We're left with three super important stereo field generators: orchestra, guitars, synths, and then there's the effects. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna play with the Roger Schult shifter, and I'm gonna try and find a way to emphasize this. So we're gonna listen to the guitar stem, take a look at the out of phase stuff as well, because that's, we don't wanna exaggerate that, but I'm gonna use the delta as well to try and listen to when I get the most opening, factors. So this could be, I usually don't want to go lower than 400 because I really want an audible effect. Could even be 2.5K just to widen the highs maybe a little bit. I don't know. I still don't know. But I'm going to hear the delta and we're going to hear when it's kind of right. So we engage delta on and then we play with this. So there's a lot of stuff around 50 and around 150. So let's try and remove the delta and then play with that. Wow, let's try before and after. What? I don't know what to say. I wasn't prepared to hear that much, but I told you I love this, so I'm super partial. It's just like so effortless and analog in a way. I don't want to touch it anymore. I want to hear it with bass and guitars, and then I'm bringing the vocals, and we'll hear, does this create the soundstage we're looking for or not? It's pretty awesome. Now I'm looking at the correlation, and because the multi-core is telling me, yo, you have some mids that are out of phase, I instantly know that I should probably hard my enthusiasm and just revisit this. But this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And I'm gonna try and move it, but I'm partial. I'm gonna try and copy this, maybe move to the 2.5. Maybe it could help just, getting rid of that out of phase mids. Because if we collapse to mono, which I'm gonna try and do, we might lose a lot of mids. Let's try actually to collapse to mono. You hear, right, how much we lost. So let's try and get a, fix on this. How fun is that? I'm gonna make fun of myself. I completely freeze and lock up when I'm listening to this kind of analytical stuff. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm thinking about that. Why am I locking up this much? It's just like my ears completely freeze my entire body functions. Whatever. But anyway, enough making fun of myself. This is nicer. This is better. 2.5, I like it. 105, it's better. We're not completely losing it. It sounds fine in mono. Question, imagine not having the visuals I'm using right now and being completely carried away by the fact that Roger Schult is a dear friend of mine. I love what he does. He's been a mentor of mine since forever. And, you know, that would be awesome. But now the meters tell us, don't, you know, fall in love too easily. And now I think we got a real good one. We don't want clients calling and say like, yo, this is mono, it doesn't exist. What's wrong with that? Orchestra, same stuff. I'm thinking 2.5 could be good. Let's try the delta again and just do our thing. So I hear a lot of stuff and I think, okay, that's where I want to start. But then I look at that and I'm like, that's pretty out of phase. All right, so then we try and lessen it. Okay, without and with. We actually recentered a weird kind of phase thing that this had. Now, I want to copy this again. I want to try and play with the devil. I want to go lower. I want to expand it. So the highs are out of phase there, but I kind of like it where it is. And I'm thinking maybe if I blend it with the guitars, I get a better picture out of this. And then we mono it and we differentiate, like we play mid and side. It fixes the unstable kind of phase relationship somehow. And what else was I want to say? That you can keep the degrees there, that's what I wanted to say, and switch the frequencies. And you hear instantly how, you know, the image presentation completely changes, right? So this is good. I'm gonna, you know, unflip, reflip, we're flipped in phase, whatever, in left and right. Play with this and just re-experience this. I wanna hear both channels, play with the guitars, and then add bass and drums. So we get a sort of a softer, like the highs are out of phase, but the mids aren't. This is interesting because then the highs are gonna get spread a little bit more. So let's hear it. Yeah, all right, so let me hear this. I'm still partial to whether I wanna flip left and right, but you know, that's probably gonna change the drums as well. It's too drastic, but maybe that could work for the orchestra. So, you know, I'm partial to this. I'm gonna take the mini here and I'm gonna copy it here, actually move it, doesn't matter. And I'm gonna try and flip this because they're sounding better. I know like the strings maybe not, they're no longer realistic, but maybe the guitar. I like it better with guitars and orchestra flipped, but not bass and drums. And if it wasn't for that button there, I would have never known. So now, keys. So they're leaning towards the R side. I want to try and expand these as well, just for kicks. Let's try this. Delta on. Okay, let's go back to the 50-ish kind of thing, and let's just move the frequency and hear what it works. It's insane how, like, this is actually the perfect session to try the, trust me, I had no idea. I had no idea, but it's awesome. So these I like not flipped, just so you know. So now what I want to do is play with the SantaCruzEQ and just make things a little bit better. I'm going to start with the synths, and I'm going to play with the guitars, drums and bass, and the vocals. Vocals are probably not going to leave any longer because I want to keep them there. So
each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun.
Why not? I like this. Now guitars are getting the SantaCruz as well. Notice I'm like wildly just moving stuff and then muting everything and retouching it.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
You hear that, right? And I want to fix it. I don't like that part.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
Now I like that frequency. I want to carb that though. So I'm going to control, go here. Look, I'm trying to move horizontally. It doesn't do anything. It's perfect.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart doesn't need another crack. We go forward this time, there's no going back. Our kiss marks the spot, so sublime. Finally we can say each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirror.
It's insane. I switched to the constant Q asymmetrical because that's like kind of like a little bit of an API vibe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it says USA style, you know, so I can't make mistakes like that. So now I want to work on the orchestra. Let's try the MAAT SantaCruz. That's what we have, but we want to have the vocals as well with the guitars.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished.
See how you can really pinpoint where the element is without muting stuff? That's a side note to everybody.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday is big.
I'm gonna go proportional 1, as if it was like sort of a Neve thing, I think.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart does.
And if you want fine, you know, you just go shift when you need to change stuff. So you have all of the controls that usually EQs have. Now, what about it in solo? Because I'm curious, like I'm lifting a lot of weight here. Sounds good. I don't want to change that. I'm also gaining stuff, maybe a little bit, but doesn't matter. We might be pushing against the limiter. We don't care. It sounds good. So everything, and now last but not least, the backings. We already worked with them. Ah, okay, no, the synths, the effects are here. There's actually a lot of stuff here. This part I really love, where the title of the song is sung. See, this one I don't want to reshape with the RSPhaseShifter because it sounds fine. I don't want to do that. But I want to use this to reshape my synth parts. But it doesn't make any sense if I don't do it with the rest of the stuff.
Going back now. No going back now. No, there's no going back. No, there's no going back. Going back now.
This needs to be done because there's a little bit too many lows and they sound fine. I'm not oversampling, I'm not, you know, I'm just leaving it as is. I could do it, but it says here that for analog-like filter characteristics and baseband sample rates, if your host CPU resources allow, always keep oversampling enabled. As it goes from 2, is actually, oh, okay, automatically disables the 2 and 4 times sample rate over samples. So it just goes probably higher. I haven't done it. I imagine it's gonna get better. I'm, you know, skeptical all the time about this stuff. I mean, it works, but I'm not really hearing aliasing or that stuff. It sounds fine. If I were to add it just because it sounds better, it says on the manual, now, that would be a huge mistake, because why would I change the sound of this track? I really like it now.
Going back now. No going back now. No, there's no going back.
I mean, hear the power of the reshaping of the phase with this thing. Trust me, it isn't common. I really like that. I understand why a lot of colleagues of mine have done this. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. I'm just gonna bring in the backings and re-listen to them.
Going back now.
We probably need to adjust some stuff because of the references that we changed. So I'm gonna leave these MAAT Santa Cruz. I'm gonna make another one and I'm gonna just use it afterwards. No need to change that. So I doubled the bands, right?
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun.
All right, I mean, I keep adding that 100.
Each candle we've blown.
I think we should do it with a shelf this time. I'm partial to the belts lately, maybe low shelf, but like this could really work. We have a filter for safety, so.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
You heard it how in solo I was, you can't really hear that halo of heat. That's great.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun.
All right, I'm calling it. It's fine. This one is off. We leave it like that. Let's take a look at the resources we're using. I mean, these things are pretty cheap. Multi-core is 2. The rest is all 1%. So we're all good. So last but not least, I want to do one last change in the kick, in the actual drums. So they're one stem. I can't really work on the kick, but I want to try and mirror with the RSPhaseShifter to see if I can just work the actual balance of the kick within the mix in a different way. Then if it doesn't work, I'm gonna try something else.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart doesn't need another.
It actually worked. It's insane, but we're gonna do what I also hoped to do as a plan B. So we're gonna take one more bass and we're gonna call this all band, whatever, because there's also the melody in here. And then we're gonna take the actual drum and bass. We're gonna use a SantaCruzEQ here as well. And we're gonna try and play just with the filter because I think, you know, we wanna hear that as well. We're gonna go LC2, a little bit like more coherent, and we're gonna play the chorus and just use this on the whole music, but the drums and bass.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon. Our someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart doesn't need another crack. We go forward this time. There's no going back. Our kiss marks the spot. So sublime, fine.
See what I mean by versatile tools and monitoring and stuff? It's really, really insane. What I also want to do is one last pass of just the same filter on the bass. I'm going to disable everything but the filter. and try and listen to the bass and drums without having that bass going that low. A little bit more presence, right? So without and with. It's very nasal and kind of off phase, but with.
Wish upon how someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the...
And now what I want to do is just draw a high shelf and make the bass more sort of like easier to listen to within the mix. I don't want to compress, I don't want to do anything at all. So we're going to dial in. This number 3 is going to be our high shelf 1. I'm going to play it and just do something like this. This is a tilting trick, sort of.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, how someday has begun. There's no going back.
Maybe not a shelf. I thought it would work, but I'm thinking a bell might be that. Let's do this.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, how someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun.
All right, better. I mean, not insanely better this time. We would really need some saturation, maybe bass amp or something, but it works. Now, the last thing I want to show you is LINpro. And here we're getting into an insane thing because this is dithering. And a lot of colleagues I have are going to leave now because I know what they think, like you shouldn't dither, just truncate and stuff. I absolutely don't do it. I obviously dither and I think it's beneficial to it. So we're at 44.1, but we're at 24 bits. So if I were to export these in 16 bits, because my client is really a fan of 16 bits or maybe 8, you know, which is coming back, I could use something like a better, trustworthy dither. And don't laugh, because this is really important. What we do is we place it after everything, we turn it on, and we'll just take a look at LINpro. This is next level dithering. If you're doing jazz, classical and acoustic stuff, I guarantee you this thing is a godsend. Because what happens is you have such high dynamics and such a strong silence or strong blacks, you need quality dithering. Otherwise, especially in 16 bits, you're going to lose definition and sound and three-dimensionality and that stuff. So I'm gonna go 16. I'm gonna go round or truncate, but the bit depth is round. I don't wanna truncate. And I wanna use dither type. I'm gonna go rectangular and the triangular, sorry, I thought rectangular because it's kind of weird that it has it. Usually it's triangular. It says educational only. So, and then noise shaping, I'm gonna go first order, second order, third order noise shaping. Look at that, like you have the plots. So it's like Polar 1, 2, and 3. You see the 3, they have different versions, psychoacoustic improved, you know, it's like, it's a bit dimmed or dipped in the areas in which you might have a better experience of the music itself so that it hides itself. Ninth order, F weighting, modified ATU, play with that. The nice thing is that you can actually listen to these and you could even encode to AAC and know for sure that the dithering actually plays a role if you're playing in AAC format, like in lossless, because a lot of people still send 44.1 16 bits in a lot of rock genres. I guarantee you that because I do it a lot. So, you know, it's there. It's not all high def. And let's try this.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon.
I mean, moment of silence. Like, this completely changed the depth of this. I'm gonna shut up and try more stuff.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, how someday has begun. There's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like...
I'm listening to the vocals, forgetting about being, you know, rational, just feeling the music. Feel the music.
Each candle we've blown, every star we've wished upon, how someday has begun. there's no going back. The smoke and the mirrors are all cleared like frost melts with the sun. My broken heart doesn't need another crack. We go forward this time, there's no going back. Our kiss marks the spot.
For some reason, I kind of love this. I'm undecided. So once again, this is awesome. I would do Control, maybe Shift E, pick one of the tracks, which is, you know, the actual mix, like the channel, this one, and tell it to print. And I would go 16 bits, 44.1, you know, choose the stuff between loops, print. I have a 16-bit file with the right dither. Once you have this stuff, it's there. You know, sometimes in the gaming industry, people still use 16 bits because of PCM encoding and that stuff. Why not use the best you can to just define the soundstage? It does affect your music a lot. That's gonna be the last thing I say. I am super happy that I was able to do this in one single round because of a coherence factor and because these tools have proven to be invaluable to me in the years. I know my room, I know my speakers, but it does make a huge difference to have them. So as usual, I hope these will make your music sound even better than it already does. Take care, we'll see each other soon. Ciao.